So guys, now let's continue with our very first operation. That is, first we'll be creating a database. Then we will be creating some collections. So the flow would be really simple. First of all, you would be creating your database. Then some collections like users, products, vehicles. Then in a particular collection, you would be creating multiple documents, that is objects, right? So now let's continue. And first of all, what we need is, you can watch my previous videos on the installation part and the introduction part of MongoDB, right? So once you have watched that, so now you can continue easily. So what I would do is, I would simply use these commands into Mongo shell. We won't be using this directly on backend. We could have done that, but first of all, you need to understand all the commands of MongoDB. Just specific MongoDB, you don't need any kind of backend knowledge or something. If you're just learning MongoDB, you must go for MongoDB shell, okay? But later on, you can use the same command in your backend also, okay? So right now, we are just going to focus on MongoDB shell. So first of all, we'll just open our command prompt. So if I just type cmd, and you would get the similar one if you're using Windows, but yeah, if you're using something else, so you can watch tutorials on that, how to actually install things on Mac OS or Linux. There are separate installation. You can watch that tutorials on YouTube also. It's free, okay? So now let's continue, and after you have done the installation, rest everything is same. If you are using some separate operating system, everything is same, right? So first of all, guys, I would like to see how many databases do I have. So first of all, I have to activate MongoDB shell. This is our Windows operating system's shell, right? Similar to this, you might have different shells. So first of all, I would like to activate my MongoDB shell. So for that, I can actually type MongoSH, okay, Mongosh. So if you type this, so you can see that now I am actually inside MongoDB shell, and by default you would get test here. What's this test? Test is actually a test database which is created automatically, okay? So yeah, it's a test database, and you won't be working on this obviously, but yes, since we are inside this, suppose I want to see all the databases into my computer, into my laptop. It's in my laptop, okay? These databases are into my laptop, it's not anywhere else. So they are generated automatically once you install MongoDB, but later on we'll be creating our own databases. So suppose to check all the databases, we have a command named as, first of all, you would be writing show, then you need to write dbs. So if you write this, you can see that we have some default databases, that is admin, config, and local. These are some default databases which you would always get, right? And test is what? Test is also a database, but why didn't you see test here? Because test right now does not contain any kind of data. It's a database, but database must contain some collections to be visible here. We'll see the logic. What I'm trying to say is, right now test does not contains any collection and objects, right? That's why test would be empty, and it's auto generated. These admin, config, and local might or have some data inside them. You can see that the values are also written. These are auto generated again. So first of all, guys, let's create our own database to understand that better. So you can be anywhere, it's not compulsory. If you are in some other database, that's totally fine. If you are in admin, suppose if you are in admin, what you can do is, you can simply type, if you want to suppose switch to some database, so you would simply say use, suppose I want to switch to admin database, so I would simply type admin. Although you won't be working on admin, config, or local, you would be creating your own database. But suppose we created a database named as admin, but I use admin, so you can see now I'm actually switched to admin database, right? So now if I again type show dbs, so it would show me all the databases available in my laptop. It's not specific to admin. Don't be confused by this admin term here. I'm just saying show dbs simply means give all databases available in my laptop. That's it, okay? So it's giving me all databases like admin, config, and local. So now guys, I hope now you know how to get all the database, how to switch to some other database, but still it's very confusing, right? So first of all, if I type cls, it would clear everything actually. And here, if I want to create a database, what I would simply say, suppose I want to create a database named as students. So if I write students, you can see now I switched to a database named as students. But suppose now if I type show dbs, so what I would get is all the databases, but still here you can see I'm not getting students. I created students, but I don't get students. Why? It's very easy. You just created students, you didn't add any data to students. Okay, so student database is created, but it does not contain any data. So since it does not contain any data, so you won't see that here. So you have to add some data to it, that means some collections to students database, right? And one more thing, we'll add some collections, but one more thing, if you are writing DBS instead of this, you can also write databases. Okay, so show databases. Okay, so if you write this, you would get the same things. Okay, so DBS or databases, whatever you can write to get all the databases. Now you have created the students database, but you don't have any data, that's why you are not seeing that. Okay, so let's add a data, that means let's add a collection. Collection would be containing different students, but at least we must have a collection which is even empty. It can be empty, a collection can be empty, but the collection must be there so that you can see the database name here. Okay, so let's add a collection. So I'll just say that, suppose inside this I want to add a collection. So first of all, in which database you want to add a collection? Into students database. So you must be inside students. For that you can simply write use students. So you are into students database, right? Now here I would simply say we want to create a collection. So we would simply say db dot create collection. This is the command for creating collection. Okay, so create collection, right? Create collection. Inside this guide, guys, I would simply write data or something, whatever you write. Suppose I want to write user. Okay, so if I write user and if I write enter, if I hit enter, so you can see now a collection has been created. Now since you have a collection, that means you have something in your students database, that is user collection. Okay, collection is empty, collection does not contain any object, but at least now you have a collection. So now if I type show DBS, you can see we actually have students, right? We actually have students. Now similarly, in the initial part of the video, you might have seen test here. Okay, suppose if I just switch to test, for example, if I type show test, okay, so you can see now I'm switched to test. Suppose now if I just say db dot create one, and suppose if I just say we have test collection, if I write test collection here, and you can see now I've added test, a collection is added to the test db. So now what you would do is, now if you want to just check dbs, now you can see test is also here. That means a database must contain at least one collection which can be empty, but it must be there, collection must be there. Okay, so then you would be able to see that database into your list. Okay, now guys, I hope you know how it works. Now since you created a database named as students, it's visible here, but I want to delete this. How can I do this? So first of all, suppose I created a collection, right? I created a collection similar to this. Let me just switch back to the students db. So I would just simply type use students, right? So now you are switched to students. First of all, I would like to create one more collection to this. One collection which I created to use student is user. Second collection, suppose I want to create is products, right? Suppose I created two collections. So first collection into my students database is actually user, second is products. Okay, so products is done. Now suppose I want to see all the collections. Remember, here I have just written user, here I have written products. That means if I have written product and products, the difference would be there. Let's see what's the difference. Okay, let's see what's the difference. So now if I just write show, I want to see just collections of this database. We have two collections currently, so I must get two collections. So if I write show collections, you can see that I got products and I got user here. So it's normal here, but if I talk about MongoDB Atlas, in future you would be using MongoDB Atlas, automatically a S is added to the collection. Okay, so in future if you are trying to do the same in MongoDB Atlas, you might see products with an extra S. Okay, and here you would get users. Okay, so just for clarification, here you would be seeing things normally, but if you are using MongoDB Atlas later on, which we'll use, you would get a different thing. So make sure you name things like just practice it on your own. Later on you will see the difference when you are using MongoDB Atlas, you'll know that. Okay, but for MongoDB shell and your local database, everything is normal. Just stick with the plan. Right now everything is fine. Okay, So now guys, here you can see we created a collection, we created another collection. So first collection was user, second collection was products into our students database, and we got the collections, right? Now you got the collections. So suppose you want to delete a collection. First we'll delete a collection, later on we'll delete a database, because if you delete the database, automatically all the collections are deleted, so you won't be able to see how to delete a specific collection. So first of all, let's delete a specific collection. How we can do that? Suppose if I add a collection here, automatically I would just add it like this, and now if I see this, so you can see I by mistake I added an extra collection which I don't want. So what I would do is I would simply use the drop command. How you can do that? So you can simply use the drop. Okay, you can simply use the drop. For that, what you can do is db dot, and here you just need to type the name. So products123, type the name of your collection which you want to drop, and then you can simply write the drop method here. Okay, that's it. So if you hit this, you can see now I have actually deleted a collection. So if I show you collections, you can see I only have 2 collections. So guys, now you deleted a collection, but suppose you want to delete all the collections. That means you want to delete the complete database. How you can do that? That means you want to delete the students database. Right now if I write show dbs, you can see I'm getting students database, but I want to delete that. So I can simply say you must be in students database. First of all, the database which you want to delete, you must be there. So I'm into students database. You can write use students to be inside students database. I am inside students database. I want to delete that, so I would simply write db dot drop data base, right? So you can see if I write this, if I hit enter, you can see now I actually deleted a database whose name was students, right? So you would be inside students, but once you write show dbs, you can see it's actually deleted from here. That means all collections from students database are removed, and you won't see the students database again here. Okay, but you have to, if you want to create that in future, you would follow the same approach, that is create database whose name is students, like that. Okay guys, so I hope you understood how to actually create a database, how to create a collection, how to delete a collection, how to delete a database. So these were the first initial steps when you would set up your database and collections. Now later on, what you have to do is, right now we performed 2 operations, that is in database, and the second was in collections. Now what we'll do is, after this, if you have created a specific collection, suppose you have created users collection, now inside this you would be creating a document, reading a document, updating a document, deleting a document. That means you would be adding multiple users, single user, reading that user data, multiple users data, updating users data, and deleting users data. Similarly for products, similarly for vehicles, different kind of collections can be created like this, right? So today we just now covered the database and the collections part. Now in the next video we would be covering the documents part. So I hope you understood this video. That's it for today. I will see you in the next one. Till then, say a good day. Bye bye.